Hi, this is MarqueeCrew, and I'm going to answer a community post here on how to solve a problem that was hexing a user. The problem was dynamic fixed with text to columns, and I'll blow this up for you so that you can see this a little bit better via Alteryx. But they've received a fixed width file, and they parse them out one by one. So here's a picture of that file that is the sample file. And the only thing that they know about this is this second line. They're dashes. So the dashes represent the number of characters in each field. So there's two spaces between each column of data. And so what they're trying to do is figure out how to do this via regex expression. And, it's 200 characters, a couple hundred records. And they're concerned, well, if I do this space by space, character by character, transposing it, it's going to come up with a large number of rows. And then they don't know if the names are going to have letters, numbers, punctuation. He was thinking about building an iterative macro and looking to do this in a single pass if possible. So what I've done is I've come up with a solution. I've offered it to the user, Dan RH, and I'm going to show you how I built the solution, which doesn't use iterative macros and it doesn't use regular expressions, but it does dynamically, for any number of columns that are present, computes the content, parsing information, and actually parses the data and fields it to the appropriate data types. So it does a little bit more than they were asking for, not too terribly over-engineered. I want to set this up by showing you some of the customizations that I've done to my own session. And so I've changed the color of the workflow background to be gray. The reason that I did that is I've decided I'm spending a lot of time in front of my computer. I wanted to have a little bit less contrast on the screen. I've created a template, so I've got my logo here. I've got some containers already set up with the colors that I want to use. I tend to place my macro connectors at the top of the workflow and then processes down below, so I'm just getting ready for that. This is already set up for the workflow. I've said that this is going to be a standard macro, so that's ready. And then as part of the standard process, and I guess I should update my copyright, we're in 2018, and I can set this value as remember as default. That way, if I ever were to come up to a blank, I could say set to default, and it will fill in the default information. At some point in the workflow, I may decide to put a description here, but let's go and start thinking about how we want to solve the problem. And I liked the user's idea about using that second row of data. I don't know that it's the perfect way to go, but I think that it's a very smart way to go to use that second row of data. And what I'd like to be able to do, using my eyes, is figure out, oh, I have how many fields of data? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 fields of data. Well, I don't want to have to go and count how many fields do I have every single time. Maybe what I can do is parse this row of data out in a transpose to rows, and then I'll know how many rows of data do I have because it'll transpose if I put it on spaces as being what I'm going to transpose on. I'll know I have 9 fields this time. Next time it might be 3, it may be 200. So I think I can use the transpose tool effectively to figure out how many rows or fields I have. I can use a string function, which is the length function, and the length function will let me know how big each field maximum is. Now, as you can see, sometimes the field maximum is going to be because of the header, and sometimes it'll be because of the data content. But in either case, because it's fixed width, I do know that is the maximum. So I think I'm going to use the length function. The next is, how am I going to figure out how to parse the data? And if I know that the first field has a length, say, of 10, I could say left of the input data, I could say that that is left 10, but I'd want to use the same function for the right fields and for the middle fields. So I'm going to use substring. And substring is special in that it uses zero-based counts. So when I say I want the first 10 bytes of data for the part number, it's actually going to be a formula of substring starting position 0, length of 10. So I think that what I'm going to do is figure out what the substring functions should be, and then in this case I'll need 9 substring functions to go and then create the functions against the rows themselves. How do you dynamically create 9, 10, 3, 15 substring functions? That could be a challenge, but the Crew macros answers that challenge. They've got a tool, dynamic formula. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a Crew macro. And what the Crew macro I'm going to do is I'm going to feed it the formulas for creating my substrings. And then the dynamic formula I'll attach to the original incoming data, and I'll create those dynamic substring functions.